I never thought I would be here standing in front of this massive lakeside estate, holding the keys to a life I never expected. My name is Jackson, just a maintenance guy at the local community college with dirt under my fingernails and calluses on my hands. For years, my family called me the disappointment, the one who wasted his potential on fixing toilets and mowing lawns. But everything changed last Tuesday when my grandfather passed away. As we sat in his study for the will reading my relatives, already planning vacations and renovations, Grandpa's lawyer stood up, adjusted his glasses, and said 7 words that silenced the room. The entire estate now belongs to Jackson, alone. Where are you watching from? Hit like and subscribe to find out how I transformed from family failure to the keeper of a $4.9 million legacy my grandfather trusted only me to preserve. Growing up, I had a special bond with my grandfather Harold that the rest of my family never understood. While they saw him as a walking checkbook, I saw him as my hero. Every summer from age 7 to 17, we would spend weekends at his lake house, fishing at dawn and working in his wood shop until dusk. Jackson, son, he would say, guiding my hands as I learned to shape a piece of oak, these skills will serve you when all the fancy degrees and big titles fade away. Those words stuck with me, even as my family pushed me toward more prestigious paths. Grandpa Harold had built his fortune from scratch, starting as a carpenter and eventually owning half the commercial real estate in our county. Yet he still wore the same flannel shirts, drove an old truck, and spent hours tinkering in his workshop. Never forget where you come from, he would remind me. Money changes addresses, but character stays put. My family never understood this philosophy. Aunt Patricia, with her country club membership and plastic surgery addiction, would roll her eyes whenever Grandpa talked about honest work. My cousin Tyler, who landed a job at an investment firm through family connections, constantly bragged about deals and numbers that meant nothing to real people. Even my sister Megan, who sold luxury properties she could never afford, seemed embarrassed by our grandfather's simple tastes. I took a different path. After high school, I tried college, but found more satisfaction fixing things than studying theories. When I landed a maintenance position at the community college, I felt proud of using the skills Grandpa taught me. My family, however, saw it differently. Still playing with plungers, Jackson Tyler would snicker at Thanksgiving dinner. Maybe we should buy you some fancy rubber gloves for Christmas. Aunt Patricia was more direct. Harold, I cannot understand why you encourage this behavior. He could be doing something respectable with his life. Even Megan, my own sister, would introduce me to her friends as my brother, who works at the college, without mentioning my actual job. Each comment stung, but I saw how Grandpa would watch these interactions, his eyes narrowing slightly, though he rarely intervened directly. My small apartment above Mrs. Finley's garage suited me fine. The rent was reasonable in exchange for helping the elderly widow with property maintenance. I had transformed my living room into a modest workshop where I continued Grandpa's tradition of woodworking, creating small furniture pieces and gifts for friends. While my family vacationed in Europe and drove luxury cars, I found satisfaction in creating something lasting with my hands. The few friends who stuck around after high school appreciated my skills. When Tom's kitchen sink leaked, I fixed it. When Sarah needed bookshelves for her classroom, I built them. These simple exchanges meant more to me than the networking events my family constantly bragged about. Dating proved harder. My last girlfriend, Amanda, initially found my practical skills charming, but eventually sided with my family's assessment. Jackson, don't you want more from life? She asked, before breaking things off. You could be managing people instead of fixing their problems. She never understood that solving real problems gave me purpose. When Grandpa Harold got sick last spring, the family suddenly remembered their connection to him. They visited bearing expensive gifts and brochures for exclusive treatment centers. I simply showed up 3 times a week to sit with him, bring him his favorite lemon cookies, and listen to his stories. As his condition worsened, our conversations deepened. They think the mansion and money are my legacy, he told me during one of our final visits, his voice weaker, but his eyes still sharp. But they never asked what really matters to me. I was the one who held his hand in those final days, while the family texted from vacation homes asking for updates. When he passed, I felt a genuine hole in my life where his wisdom had been. At the funeral, I stood quietly by his casket while Aunt Patricia sobbed dramatically for everyone to see, and Tyler networked with business associates who had come to pay respects. Such a tragedy. I overheard my sister telling a wealthy-looking couple, "We were so close." I was actually thinking of naming my next child Harold. She had mocked Grandpa's traditional name for years. I retreated to the back of the room, nursing my authentic grief, while the performance continued around me. The days after Grandpa's funeral brought a strange shift in my family's behavior toward me. Aunt Patricia, who normally only called to ask for help with household repairs, invited me to dinner at her country club. "Family should stick together during difficult times," she said with newfound warmth. When I arrived in my cleanest non-work clothes, she introduced me as Harold's grandson to her friends, conveniently omitting my occupation. Cousin Tyler suddenly had investment opportunities perfect for someone like you. He had never before shown any interest in my financial future. "Uncle Harold would have wanted you to grow your money," he insisted over an expensive lunch he insisted on paying for. "I can help you, cousin. Family takes care of family." Even Megan started texting me daily. "We should grab coffee and talk about Grandpa's properties," she suggested. "I have some excellent contractors who could fix up the lake house once we decide what to do with it." Their sudden attention felt hollow. I overheard Tyler on the phone in Grandpa's kitchen the day we gathered to help Mr. Donovan, the family lawyer, catalog some personal items. "Once this will business is settled, I am thinking about turning the old man's workshop into a home gym," he said. "All those tools are just collecting dust anyway." Later that same day, Aunt Patricia walked through the lake house, where Grandpa and I had spent countless weekends pointing at walls. "This place needs to go. The land alone is worth millions with the right developer." Harold was too sentimental about this old cabin. Their words felt like desecration. The night before the will reading, I drove alone to the lake house and sat on the dock where Grandpa had taught me to fish. The moon reflected on the water just as it had during those summer nights when he pointed out constellations and told me stories about our ancestors. On my way out, something pulled me toward his workshop. Using the key he had given me years ago, I entered the familiar space filled with the scent of sawdust and varnish. A small envelope sat on his workbench with my name written in his distinctive handwriting. Inside was a simple note: "Some see value only in what they can sell. Others see value in what can be built. You have always known the difference." The morning of the will reading arrived with a tense atmosphere. We gathered in Grandpa's study surrounded by his books and the photographs that told the story of his life. Family members I rarely saw outside of holidays appeared, some I barely recognized. Aunt Patricia wore pearls and a black designer dress that seemed more appropriate for a gala than a family meeting. Tyler checked his stock portfolio on his phone while we waited. Megan had brought her husband Francis, a quiet man who always seemed uncomfortable around the family. Mr. Donovan, who had been Grandpa's lawyer and friend for over 40 years, arranged his papers on the large oak desk Grandpa had built himself. I noticed a small wooden box on the corner of the desk that I recognized from Grandpa's workshop. It was one of the first projects we had completed together when I was 12. "Before we begin," Mr. Donovan said, adjusting his glasses, "Harold asked me to say that the decisions reflected in this document were made with great consideration over many years, not in haste or illness." The formal legal language washed over us as Mr. Donovan began reading. Aunt Patricia received Grandma's pearl necklace. Megan got the collection of first edition books she had always admired. Tyler was given Grandpa's golf clubs and membership at the country club. Various cousins and distant relatives received small mementos or modest cash gifts. As the list of minor bequests continued, a palpable tension filled the room. No one had mentioned the estate itself, the business holdings, the investments, or the properties. Patricia began whispering urgently to her husband. Tyler's face flushed red as he realized the golf clubs might be his only inheritance. Mr. Donovan cleared his throat and picked up a separate document. "And now for the disposition of the primary estate," including all properties, business holdings, investments, and liquid assets currently valued at approximately $4.9 million. The room fell completely silent. I could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. To my grandson Jackson, who saw value in me beyond my material success, who spent time with me, not for what he could get, but for what we could share, I leave the entirety of my estate and holdings. He alone among my family understood that a person's worth is not measured by their wealth, but by their character and contribution to others. The silence lasted exactly 3 seconds before the room erupted. Aunt Patricia gasped so dramatically she nearly fell from her chair. Tyler jumped to his feet, shouting about undue influence. Megan burst into tears, wailing about unfairness. Their spouses looked stunned while the more distant relatives whispered among themselves. I sat perfectly still, unable to process what I had just heard. Mr. Donovan continued reading as if the chaos was not unfolding before him. Jackson has demonstrated the values I tried to instill in all my family: hard work, integrity, respect for all people, regardless of their status, and finding joy in service rather than acquisition. I trust him to be the steward of what I have built and to use these resources in a way that honors their true purpose. The room spun around me as I tried to make sense of what was happening. Through the commotion, I noticed Mr. Donovan opening the small wooden box, removing a USB drive, and inserting it into his laptop. Grandpa's face appeared on the screen, healthy and strong, recorded months before his illness. "If you are watching this recording," Grandpa said with a slight smile, "I knew so well, then my decision has caused exactly the reaction I anticipated. Let me be clear, Jackson is my choice. I have watched all of you for years, seen how you treat others when you think no one important is looking, observed what you value, and how you spend your time. This is not a hasty decision, but the culmination of a lifetime of observation." "This is outrageous," Aunt Patricia shrieked as Grandpa's video message ended. Her perfectly manicured finger pointed at me accusingly. "You manipulated a sick old man. Harold was not in his right mind." Tyler's face had turned from red to purple. "There is no way this stands legally. No way. I am calling my attorney right now." He pulled out his phone and stormed into the hallway. Megan collapsed into dramatic sobs. "After everything I did for him, all those Sunday dinners I hosted that you never even came to Jackson. You were always his favorite, for no reason." I remained silent, still processing the magnitude of what had just happened. Mr. Donovan calmly began gathering his papers. "I assure you," he addressed the room, "that Harold was of completely sound mind when he made these decisions. This will has been reviewed by multiple attorneys and includes video testimony recorded over several years, not just the message you just saw." Harold anticipated this reaction and prepared accordingly. "We are family," Patricia hissed at me when the others had stormed out. "You have a moral obligation to share this inheritance. You know nothing about managing wealth or property. You fix toilets for a living, for heaven's sake." Her words stung, but something had shifted inside me. "I know more than you think, Aunt Patricia," and Grandpa obviously thought so too. The following days became a blur of accusations and threats. An emergency family meeting was called at Aunt Patricia's house, strategically scheduled during my work hours. When I explained I could not miss my shift, Tyler sneered, "Still clinging to your janitor job when you are sitting on millions, pathetic." I went to work anyway, finding comfort in the routine of solving practical problems, while my mind tried to make sense of my new reality. When I returned home, my voicemail was full of family messages ranging from tearful guilt trips to barely veiled threats. "Remember when you crashed your bike and I took care of you?" Megan pleaded in one message. "Family helps family, Jackson. This situation is not fair to those of us who have children to think about." Another call came from a cousin I had not spoken to in years. "We are prepared to contest this will on grounds of mental incapacity and undue influence. It will drag on for years, drain the estate in legal fees, and ruin your reputation. Or we can come to a reasonable arrangement now." The pressure continued mounting. I arrived at work to find Tyler waiting in the parking lot. "You are making a huge mistake," he said, following me across the campus. "You are turning the family against you for money. Is that really what you want? To be rich and completely alone?" What hurt most was how quickly they weaponized my character against me. "If you were really the good person Grandpa thought you were," Aunt Patricia said during an ambush visit to my apartment, "you would recognize that this inheritance should be shared fairly." The tipping point came when I visited the mansion to begin sorting through Grandpa's personal belongings. I found Megan and her husband already there, removing paintings from the walls. "These were promised to me verbally," she claimed, when confronted. "You would not even appreciate fine art anyway." That evening, feeling overwhelmed, I retreated to Grandpa's study and began looking through his desk. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath file folders, I found a leather-bound journal. The entries dated back years, documenting his observations of family behaviors and values. Thanksgiving 2018. One entry read, "Patricia complained about the catering staff's appearance within their hearing. Tyler spent dinner on his phone, except when discussing his new car. Only Jackson helped clear the table and thanked the staff by name." Another entry, Tyler asked for $50,000 for investment opportunity, but became angry when I requested details. Later learned he needed to cover gambling debts. Meanwhile, Jackson refused my offer to help with his rent during layoff period, took extra handyman jobs instead. Page after page revealed Grandpa's thoughtful evaluation of character and choices. The final entry, dated just weeks before his hospitalization, read, "My decision is made with clear eyes and full heart. Money reveals character, but rarely improves it. Jackson has proven his character without the influence of wealth. He is the only one I trust with my legacy." Sitting in Grandpa's chair, surrounded by the evidence of his deliberate choice, something solidified in me. This was not a mistake or impulse. This was Grandpa's final lesson to all of us about what truly matters. I needed to honor that lesson rather than apologize for it. The next morning, I called Mr. Donovan and arranged a meeting. "I need to understand exactly what Grandpa left me and what his expectations were," I told him. "And I need to know how to protect his wishes." Mr. Donovan welcomed me into his office with a warmth that contrasted with the cold reception I was getting from family. "Your grandfather anticipated everything that is happening," he explained, opening a thick file. "He left detailed instructions, not just legal documents." Over the next 2 hours, I learned the full extent of my inheritance and Grandpa's vision. Beyond the properties and investments was a carefully structured plan. "Harold was testing your family for years, Mr. Donovan explained. Small requests for assistance observations of how they treated service workers, whether they visited, without wanting something. He kept meticulous notes. He handed me a sealed letter with my name written in Grandpa's handwriting. He asked that you read this privately once you understood the scope of your responsibility. That night, sitting on the dock at the lake house, I opened the letter with trembling hands. "Jackson," it began, "if you are reading this, then I have made you the steward of everything I built. This may feel like a burden as much as a gift right now. The family will not understand because they have never understood what matters most. I built my fortune from nothing with these 2 hands that taught your hands to work. Money was never my goal, but a tool that allowed me to provide for those I love and contribute to my community. I watched with sadness as wealth became the only measure of success for most of our family. But you, Jackson, remind me of myself at your age. You find joy in creating and fixing, in making things better than you found them. Your maintenance job is not a failure, but a choice to do meaningful work. I have watched how you treat everyone with the same respect, whether they can do something for you or not. The estate is now yours to manage as you see fit. My only request is that you remain true to yourself. Wealth changes addresses easily, but rarely improves what is already there. Trust your judgment. You have always seen value where others saw only price tags. With pride and love, Grandpa Harold. The words blurred through my tears, but a sense of clarity emerged. This inheritance was not about money, but about values and vision. Over the following weeks, I began exploring Grandpa's study and files more thoroughly. Behind a bookshelf, I discovered a hidden cabinet containing detailed plans for the family properties. Grandpa had envisioned turning part of his land into a vocational training center, teaching carpentry, plumbing, electrical work, and other trades. Another folder contained research on historical woodworking techniques and a proposal for preserving his collection as an educational exhibit. Most surprising was a list of community members Grandpa had quietly supported over the years: college scholarships for the children of his employees, medical bills paid anonymously for neighbors, loans to small business owners during tough times. Few people knew about this generosity because Grandpa never sought recognition. I also uncovered uncomfortable truths: documentation of loans to family members, never repaid evidence of Aunt Patricia using Grandpa's vacation home for business purposes while reporting it as a personal expense, records of Tyler's repeated financial bailouts after poor investment decisions. Armed with this knowledge and Grandpa's clear intentions, I made my decision. I would honor his legacy by continuing his vision rather than simply preserving his wealth. I scheduled a family meeting, this time on my terms. Mr. Donovan attended as my advisor. When everyone had gathered, looking ready for battle, I spoke plainly. I have spent the past month learning about Grandpa's true legacy, which was never about money. I am proceeding with his plans for the estate, which include converting part of the property into a vocational training center, teaching the practical skills he valued. The announcement was met with outrage and disbelief. As for the family properties, I continued calmly. The lake house will remain intact as a retreat facility for underprivileged youth to learn outdoor skills. The mansion will house Grandpa's woodworking collection as a small museum and workshop space. "You cannot be serious," Tyler exploded. "You are wasting millions on tradesman education and boat rides for poor kids." I held up Grandpa's detailed plans. These were his wishes developed over years. I am honoring them. Now I have a choice for each of you. The room fell silent. You can continue fighting me through lawyers, which will be costly and ultimately unsuccessful, according to Mr. Donovan. Or you can choose to participate in this new chapter of Grandpa's legacy. I am establishing a family trust that will provide annual distributions based on documented community service hours. Those who contribute receive benefits. Those who do not will not. The ultimatum hung in the air. Some stormed out immediately. Others sat in stunned silence. In the end, the family divided. Aunt Patricia and Tyler pursued legal action that drained their own resources before eventually being dismissed by the courts. Megan, surprisingly, was the first to extend an olive branch, volunteering tentatively at the Lake House program and gradually rebuilding our relationship. Some distant cousins I barely knew became enthusiastic supporters, discovering that community involvement brought greater satisfaction than consumption. Others disappeared from my life, entirely interested only in what they could extract financially. I kept my maintenance job, though I reduced my hours to manage the new responsibilities. My coworkers were confused at first. "Why fix toilets when you own half the county?" my friend Tom asked. "Because fixing things that matter still matters to me," I answered simply. The vocational center opened 18 months after Grandpa's death, offering free training to anyone willing to commit to the program. The first graduating class included single mothers, veterans, laid-off factory workers, and young people who, like me, found more meaning in creating than consuming. As for myself, the journey of healing began slowly. I started therapy to address the years of family emotional manipulation. I learned to trust my own judgment and find confidence in decisions that honored both Grandpa's wishes and my own values. I maintained my simple lifestyle while using the resources now available to create opportunities for others. The family's prediction that I would end up wealthy but alone proved false. Instead, I found myself surrounded by authentic relationships built on mutual respect rather than financial expectations. I reconnected with genuine friends who had known me before the inheritance and made new connections through the community programs we established. Most unexpectedly, I met Laura through the vocational center, where she taught business skills to students preparing to use their trades independently. Her straightforward approach and lack of interest in material status resonated with me. Our relationship developed naturally based on shared values rather than shared assets. 2 years after Grandpa's passing, I stood on the dock at the lake house, watching sunset colors reflect on the water just as they had during those childhood fishing trips. A group of teenagers from the summer program were learning to build their own fishing rods in the workshop, guided by instructors who had graduated from our vocational training. The wooden box that had contained Grandpa's letter now held notes from program participants describing how their lives had changed through the opportunities provided. Reading their words, I understood that Grandpa's true inheritance was never the money or property, but the vision of using resources to create value and opportunity for others. Some family relationships had healed, others remained broken by choice. I had learned that family is ultimately defined by shared values rather than shared DNA, and created a different kind of legacy than the one my relatives had envisioned. The journey from being labeled useless to becoming the steward of something meaningful taught me that our worth never depends on others' assessment. Sometimes the person dismissed by many is actually the one who sees most clearly what truly matters. Have you ever been underestimated by people who should have valued you? How did you respond to prove them wrong or right? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about unexpected legacies and finding value beyond wealth. Thank you for listening to my journey from family disappointment to the keeper of my grandfather's true vision. Remember, sometimes the person others call useless is the one who understands the most useful truth of all, that character outlasts cash every single time.